Hello and welcome. Go ahead and grab your beverage of choice today. Mine is good old H2O. Pop a squat, sit down, stand up, do whatever you want to do. But let's go ahead and have a little conversation. I want to talk about the original. I just read it this week and I have a lot of thoughts and I want to share those thoughts with you guys. I want to start a discussion and once you guys read it, I want to talk about the ending because the ending is cool and I want to see what you guys think about it. It definitely is open for discussion and that is my jam. That's not even the point of this. I just want to say that I want to talk about it. So hopefully through this discussion, I can convince you to check it out, or if you already checked it out, we can then discuss it. We're building a little group on the Discord server of, other people who've read it so we can have a little discussion next Saturday. So if you're interested in that, this upcoming Saturday on the Discord server, which I will link down below, we are going to chat about it. With that, let's go ahead and talk about the original. A short novella written by Robinette Kowal and Brandon Sanderson. It is a 3.5 hour long audiobook that only comes in the audiobook setup. So right now it is not available in written form. And if you're not somebody who can pay attention to audiobooks, you might not be interested. However, a couple of people have listened to it who don't necessarily love audiobooks and they still were able to enjoy the story. So I would say give it a shot, especially if you have an Audible account or maybe, want to set up a free Audible account. Try out the book and then, shut off that free Audible account. You could absolutely do that as well so that you can check it out. Again, it's short. It's only 3.5 hours. For me, because I listen to things at 1.5 speed, it only took about like 2.5 hours to read, so it really wasn't bad at all. Besides the length, let's just talk about what it actually was like. Before we talk about my main 3 criteria, which you guys know are world building, characters, and the questions raised, I want to talk about the quality of the audiobook really fast. Because this book is not in written form, we can only listen to it, right? So a lot of judgments are going to come just based off the delivery of the information alone. There's only one way to get that information, and that's through listening. So there is definitely music in the background. I felt like the music really added to the story, and even though I was listening to it at a fast pace, it didn't feel like the music was uncomfortable or wrong sped up, which sometimes definitely happens. Some music, when you speed it up, is just like, and you're just like, ugh, but it doesn't do that, not at all. And there are some really cool audio effects that they put on to the sound. For example, there's a couple times when she's listening to an audio recording of a voice and they put a little effect that lets you know that it's a recording, and I really enjoy that. It kind of adds depth to the story. It reminds me of those old radio shows. You know how like War of the Worlds was told over the radio, it had music in the background, it had some effects. That's what this story kind of reminds me of, the storytelling. And this is a side tangent, and maybe I'll actually make a whole video about this. This is not something I've ever heard people really talk about, and if you have, please link it down below so I can watch their opinions on this. But honestly, storytelling used to be exclusively verbal. Before we had writing, we would tell stories through speaking them. And so in many ways, audiobooks are literally more authentic to humanity and how we like to tell stories than physical written books, but I'm just saying that's besides the point. Like I said, I might take a whole video to talk about that topic. So I don't really want to talk about the premise because I'm not sure how to make sure that I avoid spoilers. It's a very short book and I know that some people are really sensitive. I will link a description of the premise of the story down below that you can access if that's something you want. Again, it's pretty short, so I don't know how sensitive you guys are to spoilers. If you're really sensitive, maybe just jump in. Essentially, the premise is it's an investigation, there's a mystery, and we need to solve the mystery. That is the most basic premise. It also takes place in a sci-fi world. So it is a sci-fi mystery, which is really cool. That is literally my favorite genre. I love sci-fi mysteries. That is like the genre I'm personally writing. Because, I don't know, there's something really great about a sci-fi mystery because you are trying to learn about and understand the world and learn about and understand this other situation. So the plot and the world building are integrated into the mystery of the story, and that makes it all the more intriguing for myself. It's a trope that I really love in sci-fi. As you guys know if you've watched any of my previous videos, if not, feel free to go ahead and check them out after this. I have 3 main criteria for the stories that I read, especially with sci-fi. That's going to be world building, the characters, and the questions raised. I do really like plot, but that's not normally something that's really make or break for me. Plot is lower down on the totem pole. These three are the main criteria that I ultimately really care about. First, let's talk about the world building. This story is really short, so you would think that the world would be limited in how much you learn about it, but my God, is the world massive, and you learn so much about the world in such a very short period of time. It's actually almost mind-blowing how much world building has been packed into the conversation, into the plot, and into the story in general. Literally everything acts as both plot, character, and world development simultaneously. I have not seen something done this integrally in a really, really long time, and I thoroughly enjoyed the way that everything came together through this story. We're talking about, there's a lot of science stuff, there's a lot of sociological things, and there's a lot of big picture world building that all gets enmeshed into this plot in a way that's very seamless, and it doesn't feel like you're ever getting exposition dumps. I never once felt taken out of the story by the world building, which for me is a beautiful thing because I just want to like the story. This book did a phenomenal job of keeping me engaged in the story. Literally, I started it in the morning and I read about an hour and then I had to start work. And then once I got off work, I did a couple of things, finished up, editing a video, and then I went right back into listening. And I actually fell asleep listening to it because I could not stop listening. And then I had to wake up in the morning and listen to the last 30 minutes. I really wish that I had just finished it last night and stayed awake, but once my head hits the pillow, it doesn't take long to fall asleep, and I should have thought about that and I should have turned it off, but I didn't, and here we are. But that's okay, because even though I read it up, split up, I was still intensely engaged by the plot. I was intensely engaged by the main character and by the world building and by all of it. All of it came together in a way that I just wanted more. I just remembered that there is one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, and perhaps this is just because it felt unreal when it came to the world building. There is this ability where if they touch somebody else, they're able to perceive what the other person perceives. And I understand that the way that technology is built, it is logical and plausible by the way that they've built the technology, but it also felt like magic and not like technology. It felt unrealistic to me. Though again, it was logical and consistent within the world and the way that the technology had been explained. But it also, to me, felt unrealistic, and I didn't exactly love that element of the world building. That is the one thing that I didn't really enjoy, because for me, with a sci-fi, I want it to be realistic. I want to be able to believe the technology. I want to believe how the technology works, and that was one element of the technology that I could not believe. Everything else I could, and in many ways, the technology works similarly to the technology that I've written in my book. But that one element where they touch and are able to perceive the other person's perception, the way that they were able to touch skin and be able to perceive the other person's perception just felt unrealistic, and I wasn't a huge fan of that, but I did love everything else, and if that's my only qualm, there's very little wrong with it. Next, let's talk about the characters. When it came to the characters, there's 2 main characters. There's Holly and there's Skylar. Holly is the main character who's throwing the whole story into motion. She is incredibly logical and thinks things through and tries to problem solve, and it is fascinating how she deals with the situation that she's in and how she makes choices. Nothing is against her will except the very beginning. Everything else, she is making choices that affect everything else, and it is all her choice, right? There's nothing that is, someone else told her to do it, except literally the beginning of the story. Everything else is her decision, her purpose, and I loved this character. The author who actually I was discussing with some friends, and they said that the prose style itself and the characterization was more reminiscent of Mary Robinette Kowal, which leads me to believe that I need to read more of her books because I loved the way that the characters came to life. They were real people that I was engaging with. Even though they were made up, they were real, and I could believe them and understand their motivations and understand every decision that they made. Even if I didn't like it, I understood it. And that is an incredibly powerful, beautiful thing to be able to accomplish. And, you know, then the plot was helped by Brandon Sanderson. So if you like Brandon Sanderson, the plot definitely aligns up with his other stories. I admit, I have not read Brandon Sanderson yet. This is the first story that I've ever read that has Brandon Sanderson in the name of authors, and it's not even really his prose, so I don't know how I feel about Brandon Sanderson. Perhaps one of the next books I have to pick up is a Brando Sando, because what kind of person talks on BookTube who hasn't read Brando? Clearly me. One day I'll read Brandon. He just overwhelms me with the sheer volume and length of his books. And how many of them there are. Kind of like Stephen King. They both kind of overwhelm me with their sheer volume of works. Anyway, I digress. Again, this is a little chaotic all over the place. Hope you don't mind that. So this main character, Holly, is incredibly engaging. I feel the emotions that she feels. I understand the thoughts that she's having, and I root for her the whole time. I never felt repulsed by her. I only ever wanted the best for her. I wanted her to succeed the entire time, and that's not always the case when I read stories, so I think that they did that incredibly effectively. I loved her character. I would read an entire series of her. So if they were to make some kind of like spin-off cop show, okay, imagine this. Take some of the premise of the world building and use that for a TV show. It would make an incredible cop show. I'm just saying, it would make an amazing cop show. So many endless possibilities. The world building would be amazing. I want to see that. So, you know, Mary Robinette Kowal and Brando, if that's something you're interested in, I will be number one to sign up for that, because that is what I want. I want more stories like that. This story has been the thing that I have been waiting for a very long time. I've been looking for stories like this. This book hit the check mark for all of the things I want in a story so well that I just can't even. I can't even. The other character, Skylar, he is a little bit less on the page, or, you know, the sound, but he also has a really strong personality. He comes through. It never feels like he's blank or thoughtless. Like, it seems like he is just as real, even though less prevalent in the story. He's just as real as Holly, and I really enjoyed that character. I wanted to see more. Honestly, my biggest criticism is that I wanted more from Skylar, and I wanted more from this book. You just make this a full-length book, okay? I would read the crapole out of it. Please, make it into a series. Make it into a cop series. I would lap up every single page endlessly. I want it. Please, make it happen. Anyway, characters are great. The character arc for Holly is fascinating, and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time listening to it. So I definitely think that it was incredibly effective. The characterization in general. Finally, let's talk about the questions raised. So in this world, they are able to clone bodies, and they are able to duplicate the human consciousness, which, by the way, I'm going to make a video soon about altered carbon, and that is almost essentially the same way that the technology works. It literally duplicates the person's mind and allows them to hop from body to body. The same thing in this world. They're able to hop from body to body. However, the cops can use that to their advantage. The cops can create replicas of people. The cops can create replicas of people to hunt down their originals. That is just so scary, the concept of that you might be forced to hunt down yourself for a crime you committed that you likely do not remember. That is frightening. One of the main themes of the story is about the humans need to have fear in order to have a fulfilled life. It's the humans' need to fear death that allows us to be able to do all of the things that we do, and that without the fear of death, humans aren't really living to their full potential. And that's a beautiful question to ask. That is a beautiful thing to question about society. Is that true? What would happen if humans didn't fear death? What would happen if humans could live for absolutely forever and we're all interconnected constantly? That is just something that we need to question before we get to the point of being globally connected. There is a day when we will all have technology, like in this book, where we are all connected via the internet and our minds, and there will be no privacy. There will be no way to hide from one another, except maybe if you put some security codes, encryptions on your stuff. But we're going to be connected to people in this way in the near future. I could see that happening within the next 50 years, if not less than that. We need to question, what are the consequences of making those choices? What are the consequences of integrating ourselves with technology so wholly that we're able to remove the fear of death? What will happen to humanity if we forever stay young, if we forever stay in perfect health and never have anything, any reason to fear our lives ending? What will happen? And I think that this book sparks those thoughts. It sparks those thoughts of, where is humanity heading, and is this good? Is this right? What are the consequences of that? And I think a truly powerful sci-fi needs to have those kind of questions, and I'm really grateful that the original did. Again, the original is literally checking off boxes of things I love. Check, technology integrated with humanity where everyone's connected to the internet. Check, there's a mystery. Check, the story questions the value of said technology. It just, check, 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 check. I could list them on forever, but I don't want to waste your time. There are many reasons why this story was perfect for me. My main criticism is that it was too darn short. I want more. I need more. I want this world to be enmeshed in my mind. I want to explore this world more. I didn't get enough, and that is my biggest criticism, is that there was not enough. What did you think about it? Did you enjoy the story? Did you read the story? Are you going to? Again, it's only 3.5 hours of audiobook, so even if you listen at normal speed, you're going to get done with it in a day. So check it out, listen to it, let me know. And I want to talk about the ending with you guys. Next Saturday, in a couple of days, we're going to talk about the ending, so please read it so we can talk about it. Or listen to it, because there's nothing to read. Unless you consider listening reading, which is a whole nother debate. I know that there's a debate about the quality or purpose of audiobooks. We're not even going to get into that. Like I said, I might make a whole video, but I really enjoyed the original. I highly recommend it. It's short. It's a really good version of what sci-fi can be. Did you think there was stuff wrong with it? Please post those unpopular opinions so I can disagree with them down below. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!